Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you. Hello, good afternoon. Welcome, everyone, and welcome to those of you online joining us online. We're very pleased to have you here on our presentation on the scaling up of clean off-grid energy access, a case study from the Beyond the Grid Fund for Africa, an event organized by Nefco, and we're very grateful for also having the colleagues from the Nordic Council of Ministers to support us. Okay, so we move directly to the. No, it's gone off again. Is it better if I speak like this? It's better? Okay, okay. Sorry, that was me. Okay, well, take three. So, welcome to our event on scaling up of clean off-grid energy access. Very pleased to have a hybrid presentation. So we have Eric here from CEDA, and we have our colleagues also joining us from Africa and from the Caribbean. So we'll come back to those colleagues in a while. Now, what I'd like to do first of all is to hand the word really, before I hand the word rather to Eric, I'd like to just to highlight a couple of important milestones that the Beyond the Grid Fund for Africa has reached recently. So I'm very pleased to say that with the support that we've had from Sweden, from Denmark, from Norway and from Germany, we have eclipsed 2 million people served. So we've reached over 2 million, around 2.2 million beneficiaries in 5 African countries. So this is a very important milestone for us. We've to date contracted 29 companies, 29 investees working in those 5 countries. And they have been contracted to reach around 8.7 million rural Africans. So we're hopeful that this development will continue, and we will keep you informed on progress as we proceed. So the journey so far really has been very interesting. We're now 5 years into our program. As I say, we've reached 2 million people. That's over 400,000 connections. And we've impacted a number of lives. So it's really a good opportunity to have a stock take of where we are at the moment. So, so with no further ado, I'll pass immediately to our first. Apologies. Pass to our first speaker, Erik Korsgren, who is the Director for Trade, Private Sector and Financial Instruments at CEDA. So, Eric, the floor is yours.
Closer, like this? Yep. Ladies and gentlemen, both those present here in Baku and those possibly online, I am proud to represent Sweden at this event to share insights about the Beyond the Grid Fund for Africa. We look at the BGFA program as an innovative flagship program that we, the Swedish International Development Cooperation Agency, CEDA, are proud of to have been part of co-creating and are funding. BGFA is a shining example of a catalytic financing approach we have introduced to our toolbox of instruments to help increase energy access in Africa. From our perspective, one of the triggers to engage in a program like this was a commitment made by Sweden in 2015 to mobilize private sector capital, innovation and skills to increase access to modern energy services among millions of underserved populations in Africa. And that is what we are believing that BGFA is doing. As we today celebrate that BGFA has contributed to reaching and improving the lives of so far even more than 2 million people, I would also like to recognize that the predecessor fund and program, the pilot program implemented in Zambia under the name Beyond the Grid Fund for Zambia between 2017 and 2021, contributed to reaching another 1 million people. BDF Zambia was the pilot and the inspiration for the larger program BGFA Africa. As was done during the implementation of the pilot in Zambia, I'm looking forward to learning what 60 decibels have picked up from interviews with customers to the currently contracted energy service providers supported under the program. Last time it was done for the program in Zambia, it put color on and gave important insights to guide continued efforts to accelerate underserved people's access to modern renewable energy services. This type of work to gather evidence for learning that is commissioned by Nefco under the BGFA is crucial for continuous adjustment and improvement of the program managed. For all stakeholders, Nefco and the contracted energy service providers, and for us as donors, as well as for the recipient countries. It provides us with inspiration and evidence for considering complementary interventions that can support the growth of the sector, be it technical assistance for regulatory reform, subsidies for leaving no one behind, or sharing risks with debt providers. One important insight that we have is that despite the high reach out, including a high proportion of underserved, energy poor people, we cannot see the BGFA as the vehicle to achieve universal access. Reaching universal access and reaching the poorest of the poor will require targeted subsidies. I hope that the evidence and learning can be an inspiration for others to either join or take the learning in order to support efforts with similar objectives of supporting universal access. We welcome more donors, the private sector, national governments to join and apply the approach in more countries. Let me end by saying that the program's success is critically dependent on the support from Denmark, Germany, Norway, and the US, whose contributions have continued to be vital in the BGFA's development and achievements. This enriches dialogue with new perspectives and ideas and contributes to joint learning. Enough said now from me. Now I'm looking very much forward to hear more from the other panelists. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Eric. I think you've highlighted a number of very important issues there, and we are indeed very much committed to learning and dissemination. And I think that, as you say, we are not going to solve the problems of the energy access world, but we want to support and to guide using the real evidence that we're getting. As I mentioned before, we have around 30 companies, and we have a very diverse portfolio. We have companies working with solar home systems, with mini-grids, productive use elements. We've also got some innovative battery rental model companies. So we can contribute a lot of learning, and I think that's a very important aspect to highlight. Just to also highlight that by supporting these companies, we really aim to de-risk their entry into rural areas. And what we're trying to do really on the basis of lessons learned really is to highlight the very real challenges that companies face. And I think it's fairly evident now in the current circumstances that we're facing headwinds. There are difficulties, and we'll hear more about those as we proceed this afternoon. And we also want to help these companies to scale. And I also acknowledge the reference that you made to the Beyond the Grid Fund for Zambia. I'm very pleased that we have a colleague here from REAP, who REAP were the technical advisor to that program as well. Okay, so I think just to move along now, our first speaker is Lilian, who is joining us from Wide Energy. It's lovely to see you, Lilian. Now, Lilian, you are the CEO of a locally owned and managed company in Zambia, female-owned, proudly Zambian company. What we'd like to really hear from you as a BGFA investee, really, is this question that's come up of late. The elephant in the room has always been affordability. And for the audience here, I'll just highlight that there was a recent report from the World Bank, from ESMAP, which indicated that around half of the population in Africa actually could not afford the monthly payments on even a tier 1 system. So this is a real challenge that's been highlighted by the Solar Trends report. But my question to you, Lilian, is based on your experience in Zambia, how is Wide Energy seeking to improve its commercial performance in these difficult times? So over to you, Lilian.
Thanks a lot, Ash. I have to admit that this is the first time in any of the panels I've been to that we've tackled the issue of affordability, and yet it's a huge challenge, and definitely elephant in the room. And usually these people are the ones living in the hardest communities to reach. They are the ones at risk of being left behind. And this is unfortunately the reality in Zambia, and so is a reality for Wide Energy, where even those that are able to afford the tier 1 product, they really struggle to pay a monthly fee of $8, even when they are financed, even that when they are pay-go financed. Because in most cases, these products are actually competing with the essential household basics, like food or medical bills. And today, as you know very well, in Zambia, it even harder because of the drought that has affected more than 60% of smallholder farmers. And mind you, 90% of our beneficiaries are farmers. So they get to a point where they have to choose between paying for the light of choosing for buying food. Obviously, they buy the food and they fall back to the unclean sources of energy that we're using, or simply nothing until the finances improve. Affordability definitely remains the huge challenge. And how do we make sure that we can get to those hardest to reach and the poorest? But most importantly, how does a company like Wide Energy that is dedicated to that very last mile distribution remains viable and sustainable? It is crucial. For Wide Energy, how do we improve our commercial performance? We've had, with the access to result-based financing with Nefco, we've now introduced higher value products to higher income customers, and that has become a lifesaver, because now we are able to have access to a certain level of income and cash flow that we couldn't with the solar home system. But I also ought to mention that since we had access to the BGFA funding, in less than 10 months, we've reached out to more beneficiaries that we've reached in the previous years, 2022 or 2023. And that shows that it does have an impact on the beneficiaries, and in most cases, the poor, maybe not yet to the poorest. And that's another issue that we have to tackle when we are talking about big numbers. When you talk about Mission 300, that is an initiative for the World Bank and the African Development Bank, which aims to electrify the 300 million before 2030. How do we make sure that it's a success? How do we ensure that we have that willingness, all of us, to look at that 51% that cannot afford even a tier 1 product and look at it with a human face and not just numbers, and then turn those big numbers into making the poorest our priority? I think, thank you, and that's my 2 cents on that.
Well, thank you very, very much, Lilian. I think actually I just reflected, given that we're here at a climate conference, and you mentioned the impact on people's livelihoods, on their incomes, and their inability, therefore, to pay because they're in rural areas. You know, it's also very sad to know that, of course, the drought in fact impacts Zambia's clean energy grid.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you know, I mean, how many hours of electricity are you getting now in Lusaka these days?
As privileged, we are getting 5 hours a day.
Yeah, yeah. This is
And this is from 3 hours a day, 3 hours a day. So 5 hours feels like a luxury.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm really sorry. I think it's very hard for us to really appreciate what how challenging that is. But yeah, we hope that things will improve. But there are challenges, of course, with the dam, and Kariba is not going to fill up overnight. So that's going to be an ongoing issue. I also wanted to highlight one other thing, and we've been doing some work with the Beyond the Grid Fund for Africa in Uganda, which has been focused on skills and training and so forth. And I guess it's no exaggeration to say that the off-grid industry is suffering from a skills shortage. There are real challenges there. These are the skills required to sell, to install, to maintain off-grid systems. How has this affected your company, and what can be done, do you believe, in terms of enhancing skills and access to skills? And also, one of the things we've been trying to do in Uganda is to bring more women into the workforce, and that's actually been quite challenging, even to get people to train in Uganda. We have a target to reach 40% of the trainees to be women. But what's your experience in this regard?
Great. So yes, skills are another challenge in the industry. As you know, scalability in the business is highly related to, depends on human capital. And these are the sales team in the field, these are the technical team, the trainers, the commission-based that have never had to do that in the past. And in that case, companies do incur a lot of high costs on operational costs, because we'll have to move our technician from point A to point B. We'll have to move our technical team from this point to the next point, and you can imagine how widely spread the country is. And we constantly recruit and train all those people. And sometimes we are training them on something that they've never really had to be trained on, something that they really don't understand very well. So it takes time. It takes a lot of finance on the skills that we incur, on the costs. So at Wide Energy, where we already have a gender recruitment strategy that is in place and in line with our mission to empower the women and the girls, we still have a lot that can be done. The partnership with off-grid solar companies, with universities and the technical team. We recently hired a young girl as a technical, straight from school, who was technically skilled, but did not understand much about renewable energy, about solar products, about whatever has to do with the work that we do. Amazingly, she came for a 3-month internship. She has stayed and she has become our main trainer in the company, which is something that we are proud of, and we hope to continue doing a lot of that. We can also support the women in the STEM education, but most of all, having access to funding that can allow us to develop those programs. And on top of that, I believe that we should be able to measure, we should be able to have the tools to measure those skills, to monitor the progress. Otherwise, it will be a work that is done in silos, but no data really to show for that. And I think Kat will have something to say about that. But really, basically, to overcome those challenges, I do believe that we have to have that innovation, that continuous innovation in the training and development. And to top it all, we have to have a long-term investment in our capital, in our human capital. That will allow us to change the narrative, to see a young lady climb the roof of a customer and the customer doesn't have to be in total shock, which has happened a couple of times when we're in the field. To change the narrative, to break that cultural biasness, and then to create the role models in those specific areas where we are. if we are able to create role models in the off-grid areas where we operate from, the change will come. We'll be able to have access to those 40% female that we are looking for.
That's wonderful. It's really good to hear that. And I think once again, Lillian, I think you're an inspiration to all those women and girls in Zambia. And I know things are very difficult right now on all fronts, and the economic challenges are quite significant, of course, in Zambia. So we continue to work with you, we continue to support you, and we always appreciate you. So thank you so much. And I think
thank you very much.
What we'll do now is actually, I think we'll cut to a nice video that we have of your operation. So we'll appreciate you now. Thank you, Lillian.
Thank you very much.
Mazina yanga ndine Ruth Nyirongo, ninkala kuno kukasabasa mukabwe. Nina bana 5 na bazukuru. Business ya mene nchita ndine mulimi mung'ono, tilima milisi, soyabinzi, sofa hapa nilina nkuku. Ninaziba wide energy mu 2019. Nina maklienti nimagulisa ku variety wa wide energy. Customers benangu banaona ku variety vamene nilinavo vamazibwirira vikati tufuna nice tikule ku chilight chamene munagulako.
Our training program is designed to empower our sales agents with the skills, the knowledge that is essential for success as champions and advocates of clean and renewable energy in their communities.
Using makendru na parafini nchodula. So chamene ningalimbikiseko kubanzanga bamene bakali using makendru or bamene using parafini tifire kuchinja umoyo manje ni wochinja. Tifire kuchinja tibweleko mviraiti va masola. Kulibe parafini, kulibe makendru, kulibe petro yashira. Petro ni zuwa. Ukatenga sola waika pazuwa, mwene wake mulungu ayamboika mu parafini mu power bank. Kukafipa kuseni iwe ni kutini kachewa yacha chayaka uli mmalaiti.
We can clearly see how committed Wide Energy is to empowering Zambian women. We hope that Wide Energy is able to support more Zambian women to get access to clean energy, to learn more about it, and to enjoy the benefits it brings, including for health, environment, and income generation.
Okay, thank you. That was a wonderful video. Such a happy customer. Gosh, right. Okay, so I think what we'll do now is we'll move. We'll come back to you, Eric. You haven't been forgotten. We'll come back to you in a while. But I wanted to move really to Kat Harrison. Kat Harrison, you're the director of 60 Decibels, which is a data analytics company which has done some really pioneering work in this space. So lovely to see you. I think you're going to share with us some of the early findings. So this is hot off the press, and I know there'll be some caveats, but I think we wanted to really share with you some of the early findings from your work. So over to you, Kat, and welcome.
Yeah, great. Hi, everyone. So the work is definitely in progress. It's not complete just yet, but really excited to share some of the early insights. As Ash said, we're doing what we do best, listening to end users across the globe about their experience with energy access, the impact it has, learning about who they are and what is and isn't working. For this study, as you know, Ash, we're speaking to customers who are accessing solar home systems and mini-grid connections in Liberia, Uganda, and Zambia. And so far, we're seeing that nearly half of people reached by the companies are living below the poverty line, and 4 in 5 didn't have access to this technology before. So that's a really great early indication that the portfolio are reaching previously unserved populations. Using our benchmarks, we see a higher than industry average rate of 3 in 5 users saying that energy access has significantly improved their quality of life. And 2/3 are now have reduced their spending on energy access because of that new product or service. We included a set of questions we've recently developed to try and understand the potential climate resilience impacts of energy access. And we're seeing that 1/3 of families feel that they would have an improved ability to cope with future climate-related weather shocks, thanks to that energy access. And so that might become increasingly important in understanding the climate resilience effects. We'll also have additional data on areas for improvement too, so lots of actionable insights coming soon.
That's great, Kat. Thank you so much for that. And I guess the report will be out after Christmas, so we'll be sure to communicate that to everyone. I also wanted to revert to you regarding the first-of-a-kind study that you've done with Acumen recently. I know you published that recently, and the work that you did on productive use. Now we have 4 productive use of energy companies in our portfolio. I don't know if you wanted to maybe perhaps give an overview of some of the key findings that you found from that work that you did.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, we just spent the last 12 months diving into the economic impact of access to energy if used productively, so for income generating activities. The study also included agribusinesses as well as productive use of energy. But there were 4 main findings. Positively, we saw that PUE companies have meaningful economic impact on their customers' livelihoods. So all 3 of the companies we studied improved the specific drivers of income that they aim to shift. So that was either reducing costs, improving prices, or increasing yields. So one key point was the need to focus on the driver where the company has the opportunity to make a difference. Secondly, importantly, of course, all the companies are operating within an economic context beyond their control, and macroeconomic factors had positive and negative impacts on customer incomes during the study. Still, overall, though, customers reported improved financial well-being because of that access. So that's really important when thinking about kind of what might have happened otherwise had they not had access. Third, successful companies have the most impact on customers with the lowest starting points. So customers with the lowest revenue, which tracks the lowest income at baseline, saw the greatest gains in impact at end line. And this one feels important in some ways, as the results suggest that the actors have an opportunity to potentially contribute to outsized impact for lower income stakeholders. And then lastly, better customer experience drives better financial gains, not surprisingly. So customers who didn't experience any challenges using their product or service were more likely to see their incomes increase. So the lower the user challenge rate, the better the customer experience, the increased likelihood of positive economic impact through income increase or spending decrease. So the key premise here really is around quality of product, service, and support. If a customer can't use their product or service to full effect, we can't expect them to realize the full benefits of it. So particularly linking to results-based financing, this can be a really important result to look out for.
Okay, thank you very much. Some incredible insights there. I think that the quality of the service is very important. It's something that we've focused very much on in the Beyond the Grid Fund for Africa. We've set high standards, in consumer standards for the products that are sold, and we follow up on those to ensure that the products work well and they achieve the sort of impacts that Kat's just outlined. Okay, so thank you, and do stay online, you, Kat and Lilian. I'm sure you're in the background somewhere. But maybe if I turn to Eric, first of all, if you have any comments or observations from what you've seen, maybe we can then go into questions.
Just want to say thanks to both Lilian and Kat. And Lilian, your discussion about how to reach the poorest of the poor, indeed something that I listen carefully to, and Kat, the encouraging early results we look forward very much to see the full report for learning and for adjustment and for to be proud of.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. In your opening remarks, you spoke about leaving no one behind, and you touched on the issue of targeted subsidies, end user subsidies, particularly in reaching and stimulating the development where poverty is high. And you hinted that purely market-based solutions are not going to be enough. And we've sort of heard this from the Solar Trends study, which highlights the big gulf in affordability. I just wondering what is Sweden's approach generally in terms of trying to reach the underserved communities, in not only in the BGFA but in some of the other programs that you support.
Yeah, as I spoke about, we see the BGFA as a market development program, market acceleration program, and it is partly subsidized because of that, to accelerate the market. Let me say a few words about complementary support for that part of the intervention first, because we want to work in a programmatic approach. So to complement the BGFA, we work with technical assistance for not least the companies that can be involved in the BGFA. I can mention that we have the Get Invest program, which can provide advice and support to partaking companies. So that kind of technical assistance is extremely important. Also, let me mention that we have the guarantee program, and many of the companies that also are in the BGFA program have benefit from guarantees. We issue guarantees to funds, debt providers, who in their turn can lend to companies, and we do that quite heavily in Sub-Saharan Africa with guarantees for such funds. So that's how we complement the market part of it. But that wasn't what you asked about. You asked me about something that I think Lilian already dwelled upon and perhaps gave a much better answer than I can do. But in short, we see the BGFA part of the solution, but it's not the silver bullet for universal access and coverage, and therefore, but we see it as a foundation to build on, to complement with subsidies to the poorest of the poor, and then I think it's important to think targeted subsidies, not to distort the market, that will be done. I think it has to be done in faraway areas and areas with high density of vulnerable and poor people. So that is what we want to be part of. We do it partly in some of the countries where BGFA Africa is present through social protection programs. So I see that as something that complements what we are doing. And let me just say about this. I want to say that this is urgent. Of course, urgent because of the poverty reduction imperative that we all have. That we must, as soon as possible, make sure that we leave no one behind. But also not in order not to undermine the market development programs that we are working on. We have to work on both fronts and reach both the short-term and the long-term results.
Great, thank you. Very well said. I think we have to be very careful about distorting markets. We want companies, businesses to be financially sustainable. And the theory of change behind the Beyond the Grid Fund for Africa was initially that you could wean these companies off subsidies over the period of time. Now, I think we may need to revisit that theory of change, because this is taking longer to reach that stage. Of course, we don't have the benefit of hindsight just yet, but certainly I see that there are some challenges. We know that the financing is very difficult for companies. You mentioned guarantees. We don't see enough uptake for example, from the commercial banking sector in many of the countries that we work with. I'd like to also highlight very briefly also the need for complementarity in the instruments that are being provided by organizations like CEDA, but more of a comment on public financing in general. Our experience, or at least my opinion, is that we should, as fund managers, program managers, we should always try to really focus our instruments and not try and do too much. So the BGFA is very focused on scaling. We want that hockey stick. We want those companies that are at the verge of scaling. We don't work, therefore, with early stage companies. And we know that there are programs like the AECF. We have colleagues here from NDF. They're supporting a program which is very active with early stage companies called the EEP. We don't want to duplicate that. We don't want to do too much. Already we're supporting companies with technical assistance and with institutional support for the governments as well. So thank you for those points.
I agree on that. Programmatic, but not mission drift.
Yeah, and thankfully we've got the donors keeping a very close eye on what we do. So we appreciate that as well. Okay, so I think I don't have any more questions. In fact, I've dropped them anyway. But what I was going to do really is to open the floor to any questions. We have a lady straight away. We've got one question there, and also we may have the possibility you can also direct your question to our ladies online. I'm sure they'll be very keen to hear from you as well. If you could introduce yourself, please, as well.
Thank you very much. I'm sorry I came late. My name is Dolphin. I work for the Ministry of Education in Kenya. I'm sorry I came late, so I couldn't get the full presentation. My question was particularly, is CEDA working only with companies? Because you've mentioned a lot about grants for companies and all that. Because currently we are working on an energy project for schools across Kenya. And we would, of course, are open to exploring diverse forms of support, not only technical support that you've mentioned. So are you only limited to companies, which is a good thing, or do you have more room to explore engagement with government on government-focused projects? Because our projects are focused for schools across the country. Thank you.
Yeah, I take that one. Government cooperation with governments, respecting government ownership. That is the bread and butter approach of CEDA. That is what we mainly do. On top of that, more and more, we have got the insight that we need to work with the private sector, both to tap on their ingenuity, but also to close the financing gap. But anyway, in Kenya, we have a country program, we have a team at the embassy, so you're welcome to contact them.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Would you have a follow-up? No. You'll take that bilaterally. Okay, we have a question at the back, please.
Thank you. My name is Saija. I'm from the Ministry of the Environment of Finland. You mentioned, Lillian, that you have a gender recruitment strategy, and Ash also referred to women employment being a part of this project. I'd like to hear a little bit more about that, because I know that in my country it's quite difficult to we talk about just transition in climate action, and then most of the just transition so far is focused on technology. So it's about moving from the traditional energy sector to the renewables and so on. And the jobs tend to be very technical, and they tend to be hard to reach for reach women also in education. So I'd just like to know how deep you go into this. Thank you.
Maybe if you want to take that, Lillian, I can supplement.
Thank you, and thank you for the lady who asked the question. So with Wide Energy, to start with, this is really our mission. Our mission is to empower women to ensure that they are the ones that are driving the renewable energy, the change in their communities. So we focus on those women in the communities to ensure that they understand why they are doing this and how they should do it, and then raise the neighbors, the families in their communities, and we are able to see the change. So in that sense, our recruitment, we want to have 60% female and 40% male, which we've managed to get to since inception, 2018. And in terms of our gender recruitment strategy, is that we actually go for the cultural biasness. Nobody would come up to become a salesperson that will move from household to household as a female, simply because they don't approve of that in the villages. But we want to change that mindset, and we go through training. The recruitment goes through a thorough training that emphasizes on how that can change their income, their family, their household, and improve their well-being. So that's basically where we start. We really start from the grassroots and then come up. Not sure if that answers, but really it's along our mission and of empowering women and girls in our communities.
Thank you so much. I think you answered it very well. Yeah, I think that I'm being told that we are running out of time. Oh, is that a question? Oh, please, sorry.
If you are running out of time, then I want... Is it a sign that we are running out now?
Please continue.
Okay, so my name is Jeanette. I'm from Hungary, a young energy and climate policy officer, and mainly focusing on gender and just transition issues. And my question is, how do you see the appetite from the young women engaging in this new renewable energy field? Because what I see is that even though at the higher political level, just transition is already incorporating the women and gender aspect, however, on the ground, when we are talking with youngsters, for instance, myself, there is no appetite, maybe just in Europe, for dealing with this issue as a youngster, as a young woman especially. So what's your takeaway from the on-the-ground experiences? Thank you.
Again, maybe to you, Lillian, if you want to elaborate on that. I mean,
quickly,
yeah.
Quickly, I would say that it is the same thing here. When we move away from the typical traditional setup where people do not really understand much about why a woman should work at all, if you come to the urban section, I would say that in 2018, I was the only woman that was leading a solar company in Peko in Zambia. And most of it, I was looked up as somebody accompanying the owner of the company who is supposed to be a man, supposedly. But we've seen changes. We've seen appetite in the younger generation that are coming up into the women in energy networks. And I think and I feel like there is a change. As I said, it starts from having a role model. It starts seeing yourself somebody that looks like you, that does the same work. So I think it's coming up slowly but surely.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much. Hope that answers your question. Okay, well, I'm conscious of time, and I'd like to thank you all. Thank you, Eric, for your introductory comments and your support. Thank you, Kat, for your insights. We love all the data work that you do. You make it so accessible, and you present it so well. So thank you for that. And Lillian, again, I use the word inspirational every time because I think you are really inspirational in what you're doing and what you're trying to achieve. So thank you once again for your support, and thanks to all of you for joining us. If you have any more questions, we're happy to take them offline. And thanks to everyone online as well. Thank you. Bye.